Right, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've got a nice cup of coffee like me to keep you going. So I actually have 4 camera bags in my equipment cupboard at the moment, and while they do all have their place in my workflow, there's one in particular that I like to use as my main photography bag, and that is the Manfrotto RedBee 110. It fits all the lenses that I usually need on a single shoot, although it's nowhere near as big as my Think Tank Airport Essentials, which I usually dedicate to video shoots. And if you want to see my videography setup with that bag, then click up here or I'll leave a link in the description. Now this bag is quite an old one now, but it's still got some really nice quality of life features that in my opinion make it a 10 out of 10 photography bag. For example, it's got these easy access pockets, one on the front, so I keep my camera body with primary lens in the top there, and then I can always grab it ready to go at a moment's notice. And then it also has, if I just, let's move that out of the way, will eventually get around to drinking that. It's also got this side pocket here where I usually keep my secondary lens. So at the moment, the 90mm macro is in there, which we'll talk about in a little while. But I also love how this side pocket's got this loop here, which you can feed the zip through to protect you in the event of it snagging on something that you walk past, or if someone tries to access it while you're not looking. It's a really nice feature. Another massively underrated feature on here as well is the cabin luggage strap on the back. So when I'm going away on longer shoots with a cabin bag full of clothes, I can stick my camera bag right on top. The handle just kind of slides through there, and then there's no risk of it falling anywhere, which sadly can't be said for the Think Tank. I've actually considered stitching a cabin bag strap onto the back of that one, but I've just never gotten around to it. There's also a laptop sleeve in the back if I just open up the main compartment. Now I can fit a 16-inch MacBook Pro in here. This is the M1 Max, so the Apple Silicon newish generation 16-inch. I doubt you'd get anything bigger than that in there though. That's probably, I mean, it's on the limits. Like you can just about zip the bag up with that 16-inch MacBook in there. It's also got a couple of zip pockets, one on the side here where I'll usually keep a Sharpie and a lens cloth. And I've also got an air tag in there. It's a good place to keep it kind of secure so it doesn't fall out accidentally. And then there's also another zip pocket on the front. Let's secure that. I don't want everything falling out. It's fully loaded today. It weighs an absolute ton with that MacBook in there. Yeah, so on the front here, I'll usually just have a bit of chewing gum, tissues, because my nose is always running when it's cold outside. I've got this thing where when the sun comes out, or if there's a bright light, it makes me sneeze. Apparently there's like I think it's 1 in 10 people or 1 in 100 people or something that happens. Yeah, really random, and it always makes my nose run. So tissues, always essential on a shoot day. A mini travel fragrance, in this case, the Tom Ford Noir Extreme. Love that fragrance. My wallet and my deodorant. Side note, I absolutely love this stuff, by the way. I switched away from an aluminium-based roll-on deodorant about a year ago now, as I was sick to death of all my t-shirts getting ruined with stains and really unpleasant baked-in smells that just wouldn't wash out for some reason. And after speaking to one of my gaffers about this on a shoot, who swore by baking soda, and I then did a bit of research and landed on this stuff. It hasn't ruined a single t-shirt since I started using it. I don't get sore armpits anymore, and it smells really, really good. On longer physical days, you do have to reapply it, hence keeping it in my camera bag. But yeah, anyway, enough about deodorant. Let's move on to the main event. So in the main compartment of the bag, starting at the top and moving down, I currently have my Sony A1 with the Sony vertical grip in the top easy access section, usually with my 16 to 35mm GM on there, which I'd say is probably my most used lens. I absolutely love this lens. I bought this camera when it was first announced about 4 or 5 years ago now, when it was pretty much on the sheer edge of camera technology. And honestly, even still today, it's an absolutely phenomenal camera for the kind of work I do. I've never been in a situation where it hasn't been able to keep up. It's just been user error, like literally I can't get to it quick enough would be the only reason I'd miss a shot. And as well, the fact that they've got the same exact sensor from this in the Mark II tells you how far ahead of its time it was. So this shoots 30 compressed RAW files per second with compatible Sony lenses that can actually keep up with the focus speeds needed for this, as well as 8K 25p video. But good luck trying to actually use that without some kind of external fan, because it does overheat really quickly when you shoot in 8K. It's got dual card slots on the side, which take both CF Express and SD cards. But again, to get the most performance out of this thing, I've got it loaded up with two 1TB Angel Bird CF Express Type A cards. I love this camera. I love all the tactical dials and the buttons, and just everything that you want is within reach without having to dig through menus. And honestly, I probably don't use it anywhere near close to its potential. But yeah, in my view, that's only a good thing, because I imagine it'll probably last me at least another 5 years before I feel any kind of itch to upgrade. Oh, as well, on the front of this lens, I've got my Kase magnetic filters, which just snap on and off using a magnetic inlaid ring. The design is really, really good. I absolutely love these. So there's a little ring, you can probably just about see if I just loosen it. Yeah, there we go. I don't know if that will show up on camera. There's this ring that kind of screws into the inside of the filter thread on the lens barrel, and then the filters just snap straight on. You can stack them together. So that's the polarizer, and you could add on the 3-stop ND. You could also then add on the 6-stop ND. And then you've got the magnetic lens caps as well to keep them secure. There's also, to keep them protected rather, there's also a rear cap for these. So that goes on the back. And then you've got like a really, really easy to transport stack of filters there that are all magnetized. Yeah, super portable and lightweight. Love these things. I've got the inlaid rings on most of my lenses now, and I can just kind of chop and change. Really nice quality of life upgrade. It sounds silly, but yeah, it saves so much time not having to screw and unscrew them. And they're also genuinely really good filters. I haven't noticed any kind of weird color cast like with some of the other filters that I've used. And the polarizer is so good that I don't even really use my Zeiss CPL anymore. Don't get me wrong, I'll still use the Zeiss to shoot higher end client work, but for the everyday, this Kase one is great and so easy to use. Moving on to the lenses, like I said, the 16-35mm GM is usually mounted on my camera. It is one of my all-time favorite lenses and is absolutely ideal for street photography, architecture, real estate, travel, long exposure. I mean, you name it, this lens can do it all. And actually, I'd say if you were getting into if you were buying your first camera or you were trying to get into photography, and maybe you've already got a basic camera, but you want to start leveling up the photos that you can take with it, highly recommend the 16-35. This is the Mark I G Master. You can get that for a relatively affordable price now that the Mark II is out. Realistically, the only difference is the weight, the size, and I think the GM Mark II has a declickable aperture ring. This is still an exceptional piece of glass, and I use it pretty much every single shoot. Aside from that, I've also, put that coffee down. Aside from that, I also like to carry the 24-70 GM pretty much all the time, as it's a real one-stop shop lens, especially if you like to shoot a mix of semi-wide landscape and close-up portraits. Plus the autofocus and sharpness are great in both photo and video. I also keep my Samyang 35-150 f2-2.8 in here, which for the money is a fantastic lens. The focal length is so versatile, 35 on the low end, 150 on the top end. Do I find myself wishing it went a little bit further at times? Yes, but the fact that it comes right the way down to 35 makes it an absolutely perfect street photography / travel lens. And having f2 on the wide end as well is really, really lovely. Now, it's not got the best autofocus in the world when you're shooting video. It does hunt around a little bit, but for stills, it is absolutely class. It is heavy, and I was starting to regret taking it with me towards the end of our hike at Mount Cook in New Zealand, just due to the weight of it. But the photos turned out so good that it was actually worth the back pain in the end. Underneath that lens, I've also got the Peak Design slide strap. When I first switched, so I used to shoot Nikon, I'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But when I first switched over to Sony, I kitted myself out with all new straps as well. And yeah, so this is the Peak Design slide. I've had it for about 5 years. It still looks brand new. It's a really nice strap. It's got like this kind of texturized rubber on one side and then it's smooth on the other. So yeah, it fits over the shoulder really nicely. It's really easy to kind of whip around and just keep it down by your waist. It's got loads of adjustment in it as well. And I love the Peak Design quick release mechanism. So I've got these little tags on all 3 of my cameras. And basically you can just clip that into there and it latches in. and then you do the same on the other side, and it's just a really, really secure, rapid to attach and detach strap mechanism. Really, really clever. Absolutely love it. I've also got on order the Peak Design cuff, which is the wrist strap. Love that strap. Had one for years, bought it at the same time as the slide, and I lost it somewhere in New Zealand. So yeah, gutted, because it was about 35 quid to replace. They're not cheap, but they're really good straps, especially if you don't want something around your neck and you just want to be able to hold the camera in your hand, but a bit more secure. You know, you've at least got some kind of strap. So if you drop it, it kind of tensions itself. I can't show you because the replacement's not arrived yet, but never mind. Next up is my Sony 90mm f2.8 macro. Now this lens is the absolute daddy. In fact, to quote my friend Jack Harding, he calls this the money maker. That is how good it is. You rock up to a watch shoot or a car shoot with this, and the detail in the shots is absolutely insane. It is so sharp, the macro ability is crazy. Clients go mental for this. I find myself using it on almost every single project now where I've got the time to get a bit more creative, because I feel like most people nowadays have a good camera, but not many people make the effort to pick up a macro lens. So it's one of the ways that you can still, in my opinion, kind of stand out a little bit in your photography. Other lenses that I own but don't carry in this bag include the Sony Zeiss 50mm f1.4. It's an okay lens, but it's not really the sharpest from my experience. I also don't really love 50mm as a focal length, to be honest. I very, very rarely find myself shooting anything at 50 these days. I don't know what it is. I prefer 35 or wider, or 70 onwards. I'd probably be better selling it at this point, to be honest, but when I bought this lens, I bought it used because I wasn't VAT registered at the time. And now I am VAT reg, so I'd lose 20% of the sale price to VAT. These go for about 450 quid now, and I paid 800 for it 5 years ago. So all in, I'd end up losing about £425 net if I got rid of it. And at that point, it's not really worth it. I might as well just keep it. Then there's also a couple of small primes, including the Tamron 20mm f2.8 and the Samyang 35mm f1.8, both of which I'm using to shoot this video on my other Sony camera bodies. And I specifically bought both of these lenses for my honeymoon trip around Australia and New Zealand. And I've talked about them in detail in my separate travel gear video. You can watch that by clicking up here, or I'll make sure I put the link in the description as well. I've really been getting into coffee over the last few years. In this section here, I always keep a little baggie with some Allen keys in it and some various other tools, along with a variety of spare tripod plates for different tripod mounts. I've learned over the years that you never know when you'll need to swap a tripod plate or fix something to your camera cage if you have it in a cage. I'm rocking the A1 without for now. I only tend to use the cage when I'm using the A1 as my B cam on a video shoot. But yeah, I've always got in this pouch the Peak Design tripod plate for my Peak Design carbon fiber tripod, as well as the tripod plate for my Surui video tripod, which has like a quick release base plate on it. This also fits in the Ronin RS3 Pro gimbal. But yeah, doesn't take up very much space, and honestly, an absolute necessity these days in my kit bag. Next up, power and accessories. So in this section, I'll usually have at least 3 or 4 spare Sony batteries. Now, I don't bother with third-party ones because, I don't know, I think maybe it comes from growing up in the Middle East where electronics were kind of shady at times. So like, for example, I once had an extension lead set on fire in my house in Kuwait that had a hairdryer plugged into it. The hairdryer wasn't turned on, it wasn't being used. The extension lead just randomly started burning. So yeah. Also, I don't know what it is about home appliances over there, but they always broke. So vacuum cleaners, the power supplies after 6 months, they would just blow and they didn't work anymore. So yeah, I think maybe that is kind of what's made me a bit cautious about electronics. And anything power related now, I tend to err on the side of caution. As well, the way I see it is like, this is a £6,000 camera. I'm not gonna lose sleep over spending 20 quid more on a genuine battery that I've got 5 years of use out of. Just, yeah, not a big deal. Then I've also usually got a MacBook power adapter along with the 140 watt MagSafe cable for my MacBook. And then down here, I've got some SSDs, a couple of lens caps, body caps, that kind of thing. Also the card reader for my CF Express Type A cards. This is the Angel Bird CF Express Type A card reader. along with the high-speed cable, plus my memory card case where I've got just a whole load of SD cards, various different speeds, a bunch of 128 gig V90s, some 256 gig V90s. I've got some of the cheaper V60s just if I'm ever shooting 4K at 25p and I don't necessarily need the really fast cards. And then, like I said earlier, in the A1, I've got 2 of the 1TB Angelbird CF Express Type A's. In the top-down camera, I've got a 320 gig Lexa CF Express Type A. And then in the A7C II, which is the A cam today, I've got another 256 gig V90. And that's just about it for my everyday grab-and-go photography kit in 2026. Was there anything that you were surprised to see in my bag, or anything that maybe you expected to see but didn't? Let me know in the comments, and I'll try and get back to you best I can. I invested in the Sony mirrorless ecosystem about 5 years ago or thereabouts, having switched over from Nikon DSLR and Nikon f-mount glass. And at the time, the Sony A1 that I've shown you today was on the cutting edge of camera technology alongside cameras like the Canon R5. And honestly, it served me extremely well between then and now. A few people have asked me recently, am I itching to switch back to Nikon, especially given the new ZR with the whole RED integration? For me, at the end of the day, this stuff is just a tool to do my work. And until it either stops working or it just doesn't get the job done anymore to a level that I'm happy with, then I'll stick with what I know. There's enough other noise going on around us all at the moment, and the familiarity of my camera gear is something that I'd like to keep, at least for now. Anyway, if you like this video and you want to stick around to see my upcoming what's in my videography bag and what's in my travel camera bag videos, then make sure you're subscribed. And with that, I'll see you there.